Good afternoon and welcome to the latest in the Edge educational webinar series. Today we'll be talking about mastering project pricing with the concrete estimating solution that the Edge provides. Everybody is put on mute, but if you have any questions throughout the presentation here, feel free to put them into the chat. All right, so moving forward, my name's Dave Chapman. I'm the sales director here at The Edge. I've been with the company for 24 years, but The Edge has been around for 39 years, almost 40 years, doing estimating software for specialty contractors. We started off in roofing and interior trades and have moved into fireproofing and painting and now concrete we've released within the last year, and we've worked with several customers getting them onboarded, have made improvements to that software. So I'm going to show you the latest and greatest that we've done. Before we get started, got to mention our suite of products that our parent company Foundation Software owns. They own Foundation is, of course, the job cost accounting software specifically made for contractors. The Edge is us. HQ Suite has Project Q, HR and Safety Management. We have a payroll service just for construction called Payroll for Construction. And WorkMax is our best-in-class mobile time tracking software. So if you have any questions about those, feel free to reach out to us. Moving on, talking about the Edge a little bit. As I mentioned, we've been around for 40 years. We're pretty much the professional's choice for all-in-one estimating software. One of the things that sets us apart from other softwares is that it's a takeoff and estimating software all in one system. You don't have to measure with one software and then do your estimating with a spreadsheet or a different software. It's all interactive, so everything's happening all at the same time. It's been proven in other trades, and we've worked with concrete contractors to come up with what I'm about to show you today. It's made specifically for structural concrete contractors. It does things like supporting estimating footings, slabs, beams, columns, walls. We've expanded it into sidewalks and driveways and things of that sort. Some of the things I'll be showing you is how it is that combined takeoff solution. I'll give you a glimpse into our database and how comprehensive it is that it's been made specifically for concrete. We'll show you how, as you're doing your takeoff, it's going to be doing real-time updates on material and labor. We'll show you how you work with multiple bid options and change orders, talk a little bit about the cloud and also cloud reporting and what that gives you and what it gives your people who aren't estimating but need to look at data from your estimate. And lastly, we'll show you how we integrate with accounting softwares and project management systems, of course, with our parent company, Foundation Software. So that being said, let's jump right in and show you a demonstration of how the Edge works. All right, so I'm going to open up the program here. We're going to log in with an individual unique username and password. You can give these to multiple people within your company, and you can set different permissions so that maybe a junior estimator can only do certain things, or an accounting person needs to get in there and only do a few things, and an estimator or a chief estimator can have more visibility or more access to what you can do with the program. This will show you the licenses that your company has available, and you can check out an available license. All right, so we're going to open up the program, and one thing to point out here quickly is that we are operating the cloud. What that means is our estimating database, or our internal brain of assemblies and costs and things like that are in the cloud, and your bids are all in the cloud. There's actually a third database where we save all of your blueprints in the cloud as well. But what this means is you can basically work from anywhere as long as you have a machine with the Edge loaded on it and an internet connection. You could be working in your office, at the job site, in a hotel room, on an airplane. You'll always have access to your data. We're going to jump right in and start a new bid, and we'll just call this Webinar Concrete. And at the time that we create the bid, we can choose a different locale that we're working in. If you have different pay rates in different regions that you do work, you can pre-set up those locales and what their tax rates are for that locale. But I'm just going to start right here and add any blueprints or images that go with this particular bid that I'm working on. Give you an idea, we can load most file types, Adobe PDFs being the most popular, TIFF files and CAD files, and even JPEGs if you have some pictures that you'd like to load onto there. So I'm just going to grab a couple of different prints. You can load in the whole set. It doesn't matter. The Edge is actually saving a copy of these in the cloud. So if you've downloaded them to your network or your machine and you accidentally delete them, the Edge doesn't care. It saves a copy of those and they'll always be attached to that bid for you. You can look and preview any of these pages, decides which ones you actually need to do bids on. And once you've done that, you hit continue. It's now saving these to the cloud and opening up our estimate for us. All right, so I'm going to go through this quickly, but not too quick as to make it too rapid, but I don't want to make it boring either. So if you have any questions after the fact and you want to see a full length, in-depth demo, feel free to reach out to us. We have people available to jump online with you who know the industry. So here we're starting out at what we call the scenario level. You can have multiple scenarios of a bid. And what I mean by that is the scenario might just be your base bid. You might have a base bid with alternates. You might have change orders in there. So this is what the scenario level lets you do. Once you work along these breadcrumbs, we call them, we're at the sections level. And you can have multiple sections. Maybe you have a section for each different building if it's a multiple building project. You can have a section that could be all walls and footings and someone else doing slabs. So you can have another section for slabs. And you can actually have different estimators check out their own section. If you have a big job, you need to have multiple estimators working inside of the same bid. This is where you do that. Inside of the sections, we have the pages that we've said that we need to do takeoff from. And I'm going to go to another different area for pages. And this is where we can add what we refer to as project conditions, or in layman's term, they're master assemblies for the bid, or we refer to them as conditions or assemblies. What I'm going to do here is create one, go into that, and now we're going to start creating these conditions or assemblies. So here are our breadcrumbs. We can always go back to pages if we needed to, or work our way back into conditions. I'm going to open up our default estimating database, and you'll see we have some things in here for masonry. We've got some concrete things like general conditions. I'm going to bring these in, and I'll show you later. These are things that you may add to a bid that you don't necessarily measure, like equipment costs and things like that. Here we've got some footings and some default footings. I'll bring in a wall footing and I'll bring in a column footing. We've got different slab types. So this is our virgin database. We work with each customer for up to a week, building out some of the specific assemblies that you'd want to be defaults on here. So I'm just going to show you the main ones that we use as our starter or building blocks. I've got a wall here, so we've got a slab, we've got some footings, we've got a wall, bring in a column as well. And then we've got other things out there like stairs or diamond cuts, box out, miscellaneous things like saw cuts, expansion joints, maybe some common areas. But I'm just going to work with these for the initial demonstration that we're doing here. So let's add these to our bid and talk a little bit about what's inside of these. So these are concrete specific assemblies that we've created at the Edge to help you go through and create a bid fairly quickly. So start off with a column footing, which is of course going to be a count condition, and we can name these footings whatever we want. If you want to come out here and name each one, I have these little codes in here to show us the sizes. So if I called it an F1 footing, it'll tell us that, hey, this is a 2 foot deep 4x4 footing. And you can change these around if you want to change the heights or the depths or the lengths or walls. So I'll do this as a 1.5 foot deep 4x4 column footing. Here, if you're doing your forms, you can activate them or turn them off if you're just doing the excavation forms. Here I'm telling it that I'm doing wood forms, and I've got two sides that are 4 feet long and a 1.5 foot deep, and the same thing with the width. So that's automatically filling out based on what we enter here. If I changed it to 5x5, it's automatically changing our forms for us as well. All right. Here we have our place and finish and what type of concrete we're using. And part of our default database is going to be these pick lists. If you click on one of those, you can have different PSIs. Same thing, what type of concrete, method of placement. If you want to say pump instead of crane or buggy, and to add a new method of placement type, it's as simple as taking one of these and calling it new placement method. Save. And now that's part of your default database for everybody that's using your estimating software. Method of finishing, and you can have a pick list of different methods for finishing, methods for finishing the forms. If you don't want to finish the form sides, you just turn those off, toggle those off. Here, if you want any ankle bolts, I'm saying for each one, give me 4 1.5 anchor bolts. If you want to grout, what type of grout you're using, and if you have grout forms, if you need to have a mud mat, you can activate that here. Okay, so pretty simple. This is where we're talking about the size, the forms, and the type of concrete that we're using. Next, we've got these tabs up top. If you want to specify your rebar, here I'm just telling it, give me 4 pieces, 4 feet. It's choosing that from the size of our rebar, number 5 size rebar. If you're going to have any perpendicular crossbars or vertical bars that are going up out of that wall footing, you can activate those. Several different options to help you get the correct amount of rebar. Next, we've got our excavation, and this is going to be telling us here how deep down we want the top of the footing to be. I'll say 3 feet. Okay. Excavation type, again, you can have a pick list of different ways of doing your excavation. Again, if you're not doing excavation, just turn that off. Here, I'm telling it I want an extra foot on each side of my forms, so that's adding the extra total amount of excavation that we're going to need. The depth based on the size and the depth of the footing tells us our depth here automatically. And then if you wanted to have an angle of repose, you just set that right here, and it's going to add the extra cubic yardage of excavation that you're going to need. If you're going to have doing some backfill, you can use the site soil, you can use crushed rock, you can change the percentage of each one that you need, or if you're not backfilling, you just turn it off. Again, we allotted for a safety fence, but if you don't have one, you can turn that off. Okay, so that's setting up a column footing. Now, instead of having your default database have every type of column footing that's out there, notice it says F1 4x4 1.5 feet. I'm just going to copy and insert this one. We'll name it an F2. We'll say it's 2 feet deep, 6x6. All of our forms changed. We'll keep our concrete and our ankle bolts the same. Our rebars change for us based on the size of the footing, and the excavations all changed based on the size of the footing as well. Okay, so it's pretty easy. We call that an F2 6x6, and you can just copy and insert and create those. It works really fast. Next, we've got a wall footing, which is going to look pretty similar. And I'm just going to do a generic wall footing that's 3 feet wide, 1.5 feet deep. Notice the length for the forms is grayed out because that's going to come from our actual linear footage of wall forms that we measure. The width and for the ends, that's all coming out there. If you want to put one on each end, just do that. Again, type of form, you can have all sorts of different form types that you want. Concrete's going to work the same as the column footings and the same. I'm here, since we're measuring a lineal foot, I'm telling it every 48 inches to have an anchor bolt. Okay. Next, we've got our rebar. Again, this is going to be a little more in depth since this is a wall footing instead of a column footing, but we're just going to be telling it how many pieces we're running lengthwise. Okay. And if you change the size of your rebar that you're using, it's actually going to change the lap length that's required. So if I change it to a 6-inch, we have a 36-inch lap length. If I turn it back to a number 5 rebar, we're going back to 30 inches. All right, so that's automatically filling out for you. Then we've got our crossbars. That's actually auto-filling based on the width of that wall footing. And then if you want any vertical bars sticking up, you can do that. And it will include the number of safety covers that you're going to need as well. Okay. Excavation is going to work very similar, except the lineal footage is going to come off of our measurements, but the depth of that wall footing. We're going to have additionals on the side, angle of repose, and then backfill and safety fence. So all works the same. Miscellaneous, this is where we can put in things on the fly. Here by default, I'm saying give myself one chair for every 4 square feet of top surface area. So that's where we're adding the chairs for this wall footing. All right. Moving on to some of our default concrete specific assemblies or conditions, we've got our slab on grade. It's going to look a little bit different. It's an area measurement. We're telling it the depth, whether or not we're forming, and we can form the whole perimeter or measure where we want those forms to go. Again, we've got the concrete and method of placement, type of finish, and if you want to finish the forms sides or not. Plate dowels, again, 24 inches on center. Rebar, I've got that turned off because in miscellaneous, I've brought in my wire mesh, and you can change the size of the wire mesh here by just jumping out and choosing your menu and have different sizes of wire mesh. Right. I also have out here things like lineal foot of saw cut, curing, visqueen, soil poisoning if you need to do that in your area, and then the chairs for our wire mesh. All right, so it looks a little bit different. Area specific condition. And then just jumping into walls really quick. This is if we are doing a concrete wall, we're going to say the width and the depth. Okay. Form's going to work the same way. Same thing with the concrete. If you have any depressions for say a brick accent, or if you have any protrusions and you want a shelf, you can activate that there and what you need for your forms. Rebar, again, it's going to be a little more intense than it is for a wall footing. So we've got our horizontals, we've got our crossbars, and then we've got our different vertical options. Okay, so enough about these assemblies. If there's any assemblies that you're concerned about us not having, let us know. So far, this is had for our initial customers, everything that we've needed so far. But using these as examples, let's just jump out to the next step, which is going to be our takeoff. One thing to point out here is that our takeoff screen is a separate window, so you can actually measure on one screen as you're creating your assemblies on another screen. Okay. Unfortunately, I can only show you one screen at a time, so we'll just jump right on here and choose what we want to measure. So we'll go into a wall footing, and we'll tell it what page we want to measure that on. All right, so here's our foundation plan. Not going to let you measure anything until you set a scale. Like most takeoff programs, you can come in and choose some preset scale sizes. If you want to double check, make sure that the scale is correct, you can come in here and say calculate, take a known length from point A to point B, double check, tell it the distance, 20 feet, and depending on how close you touch, it'll say that you are at 1/8 of an inch. All right, so let's zoom back out. We're zooming out, in and out using our mouse. If you've ever used any takeoff programs like some of the other ones that are takeoff only, you can measure in segments, which means you're measuring from point A to point B, and then the next point A to point B, or you can measure in a continuous length, which I'm going to do right now in this. I'm not going to be perfect on this for the sake of demonstration, but I do want to show you some things that the Edge will do that's kind of unique. We'll go here. Let's go all the way through those and then over. Now we've got a radius. With the Edge, you just click on the beginning of that radius, any point along that radius, and the third point, and we can hit this little convert to arc or the letter K, and you'll see it creates the arc for you. Right? So we'll go around the perimeter here and just get some measurements so we have some data to work with. All right, now I'm going to continue doing some takeoff, but I want to show you what's happening in the background as we're doing the takeoff. The Edge is simultaneously creating our material list. So here we've got the cubic yards of backfill site soil. How many lineal feet of rebar we're going to need? How many cubic yards of concrete? How many chairs? All that's being added up as we do the takeoff here. So we'll just keep going around and we'll count up some of these column footings. Again, you can choose the color, you can pre-assign colors, you can choose the size if you want it to automatically, maybe the bigger the column footing, the bigger the size of the icons that are showing up here. Okay, so let's get some of those in there. Let's go into a different wall footing and count those up. I'm not being perfect with these. We do want some data to work with. All right, so these are how our counts and lineal foots work. Fairly simple, fairly quick. And we're going to come back here and let's click on our slabs and let's go to our slab plan. Right now we already know that 1/8 inch is the scale, so we'll come out here, start measuring some slabs. Right, maybe this was a different slab thickness here in the middle, so we'll measure around that. Let's not be perfect, but let's make it look nice and pretty. And let's go back. If you make any mistakes, you just make your mistake. You come back here. You can also come back after the fact and be like, let's stretch this corner out to where it should be. Okay. Let's come in and keep measuring some slab areas and then show you how we can create another slab type from the drawing screen. Of course, the drawing screen is separate from the estimating screen, so you can build your different slab sizes on that side. I created the radius for that area. All right, and now we're at that slab on grade. Say we had a 6-inch slab, interior slab there. So I'm going to come back to my conditions or my pages, go to my master conditions here, find my slab, hit copy and insert. Say now we need a 6-inch slab. And we want it to be a different color. Let's go to color. All right, let's choose green. All right, so now when we come back out to our takeoff screen, we'll see that new slab on grade. Come through and measure that. All right, so pretty simple. Choose what you want to measure and measure it. A lot of neat tools on this drawing screen, very similar to most takeoff softwares. The biggest difference is that the edge is all in one, so it's creating the estimate at the same time. You have other things like rectangles, so if you just want to come and click 2 points, you don't have to click the entire perimeter. Okay, so that's the takeoff screen. I'll show you some other tricks here after we do our pricing, but let's come back to our estimate and hit this pricing screen. All right, so this is going to bring up all the different materials based on what we've measured. If you have any subs, we allot for any subs that you might have. If you're doing all the work yourself, you just turn those subs off. Same thing goes for all of these finishing subs and things like that. Maybe you're hiring out, subbing out the soil poisoning to a chemical company. All right, so we'll update this so that it doesn't have all these things that we want or don't need. We also have the ability here to bring in those general conditions I talked about, the equipment, things that you add to a bid that you don't necessarily measure. Okay. Now at this pricing screen level, we can also come in and either use historical pricing, which I've already saved on here. You can update that pricing on a per job basis, but you also have the ability to send out a price quote to your vendor. And let me just exit this for a second while it's trying to delete these items. All right, there you go. One moment. There you go. All right, so now we're back at our takeoff screen. I'm going to wait for this to update for one moment. Okay, very good. I'm going to relog in, Dave at Concrete 2. I'm going to open up a a separate version of this, just go to a job that's already done so I can show you some pricing there. Right. Sorry, bear with me for one moment. Bring that to the other screen. And here we are. Okay. So now let's go back into that webinar job that we were working with. So it's updating all of those things that we want to delete out of the job. Didn't like me deleting some of those, so bear with me for one moment. All right, now it's opening up. All right, so here we go. Let's go into a different job that I've already done. All right, so now we're at the pricing screen. You'll see that some items here have numbers like backfill site soil, rebar number 5. It has the number 3. That shows you how many times it's showing up in different assemblies. If I double click on that, you'll be able to see which assemblies these came from the 2 different size wall footings and the column footings. All right. But instead of having to price those in a spreadsheet 3 different times, it just combines them all into how many tons, lineal feet, or tons if you price it by the tons that you're going to need. You'll see we have some historical pricing in here. But if you want to get up-to-date pricing, and you're not going to get that for these things like molds and travel, you can hit this vendor quote feature. All right, and what that does is it opens up a web page where you can choose any vendors that you've already set up. Tell them I need these prices by this date. Maybe let's put a date in the future, and come out here and send those prices or those price requests out to the vendors. What that does is it then sends them an email that they can open up from a phone, a tablet, their computer, and they can update pricing and submit it to you. We have videos and show you how this works. It's pretty slick. People love using it. And basically, you get an alert up here, just like you would in a social media icon, that they've submitted pricing. You can compare their prices side by side, choose which vendor's prices you want to accept, and it automatically puts those prices in here so you don't have to hand enter it like you do with a spreadsheet or another estimating software. If we've updated somebody's prices with the latest vendor pricing, you can come out here, mark them again, hit send to database. So this little icon here is send to database, sends those prices back to the database, and you can now have those prices stored for the next bid that you do or the next bid that any other estimator does. Okay, so that's how you save historical pricing onto there. Once you've updated your pricing, the next step is going to be to take a look at our labor. Now, one thing I want to point out is that we can look at labor as generic or as granular as you'd like. Here I've got my excavation labor, my grading labor, my footing forms, or my forms labor for my different forms, rebar labor, finish labor, placing the concrete, then any miscellaneous items like anchor bolts and things like that. You can have your default production rates in here. You can look at production by cost per cubic yard for the labor, or if you want to say how much they can do per man day, you can look at it how much they can do per hour. You can update them on a per job basis. What's nice here is I just changed that production up to 45 cubic yards per man day. If I was a manager looking over an estimator's bid and you want to see if they made any changes from what your default's over here, it's letting me know. I just sped that up 13% from what my default production rate was. So that's a good way if you know you're working for a different or a certain GC or a certain foreman's going to be running the job. You can come out here, mark everything, and say, I want to slow everything down by 15%. So very popular tool, mostly used when it's a GC that you know is possibly could be slowing things down, or it's just in a time of year where things are going to get busy and going to be done slower. All right, you can assign different pay rates for different types of labor. You can change those pay rates based on the area that you're working in if you happen to be doing union work. The biggest thing, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this labor screen, is that it will give you any bombs. We call these red things errors if you're missing some data in here. So that didn't have a production rate, or if I didn't even need to use concrete buggy, I can come out here and update that. So as we're going through this, one thing to know is that we customize the labor for every customer that we're working with. Some just want to look at it by the cubic yards and put a production rate on that way. Some people want to look at each individual piece of material and assign a labor to that. So we're flexible. We can do it that way. It's just part of the initial week that we spend with you. Is we're building, the car is already built. We're just customizing it to the way you want it to look. So once we've come through the job and we've done our material pricing and our labor, the last step is to go to our recap screen. And this is where we're going to do things like our markups for material. I've got tax in here, any labor markup, supervision, or just a general burden. You can add things on the fly, say this time of year, if rebar pricing or just pricing in general goes up 15% every couple of months, you can come out here and add like an escalation factor and say 15%. All right, and that adds that on there. The extra money, our total material, labor, burdens. You can break that. I've seen people break it down to FICA, FUTA, SUTA, supervision. So all that's customizable to the way you want it to look when you come to the screen. After the fact, you get your subtotal, any overhead or profit that you want to look at. You can look at profit as a percentage markup. You can look at it as a percentage of the total sale or margin or profit to sell. Either way, you can change those numbers accordingly. Have your default set up out here. And what it'll do is give you your contract amount and your average cost per cubic yard of concrete. Okay, and you can come in there and say, you know what, let's just do this job at 1,500 cubic yards per concrete. You can do that without messing with your material pricing, your production rate. Just going to change your profit percentage. So we went from 20 to 7.9%. Now we can go into things like reporting, things that'll help you bid the job, things that'll help you run the job. We've got simple things like drawing reports and recap reports. You can create a proposal. If you have a custom proposal that you'd like to use, the Edge can send this data into your custom proposal writer. Then we've got things like stocking reports, or a popular one with our concrete customers are these condition summaries, where it goes into each thing that we measured, the different wall footings and the different column footings, and it just gives us a breakdown of the quantity that we had of them, the net cost, the price with markup, and how much we're charging per lineal foot for the wall footing, or per each for the column footings and the slabs, and what the price is after markup. All these reports can be sent into a CSV, Word, or PDF file. But before I go and show you some more reports, I want to show you a trick that's really popular when you come out and it's time to do the job and you find out that it's going to be phase work. The Edge has the ability to come in and create what we refer to as zones. All right, so I'm going to come out here and create a zone and say this part of the job is going to be zone 1. Give it a name, and we'll come out here and just do the rest of the area. Now, if you overlap in areas, it's going to give you a warning here saying, oh, zones intersect. All right, so that'll cause you to come out here and make changes. So I'll come over here, see if we can do this one without intersecting. All right, call that zone 2. All right, now coming back to the bid itself, what this now does for us, if we wanted to break down, we can open up just that one page and see how many dollars we have in zone 1, how many dollars we have in zone 2. If zone 1 is going to be phase 1 of the bid, now you can come to your reports, mark that zone, and just do your stocking report just for that particular zone, or for the whole job. But it allows you the flexibility to do that. All right, so these are all the reports that are inside of the Edge. Before I jump out of here, I'm going to go into my admin portal. This is what the Edge uh, opens up on a web page for us. Before I go out there, I'm going to do something that is important. Now that we were done with the bid, we're going to check it back into the cloud. What that does is it sends all the data back into the cloud. If someone happens to be working in a different location and now they're ready to view it, they can go into their computer and check that job out. But what it also does is it sends that data into the cloud or into the web. And now I'm using my browser, Chrome right now, and here's this bid that we are working on. Here's the total pricing. Now we can come out here and do our proposal generator and generate a proposal. We also have the ability to go out and view reports. This is nice because someone who's out in the field or maybe at a bid meeting can open this up on a tablet or phone. As long as they have a browser out here, they can come out and look at any of these reports. Comes in handy. Also, one of the things you can do is now send this interactive budget report into an Excel file that you can then import into your accounting software. If you happen to be a foundation customer, we send this directly into the foundation through a open API. We send all of the data that you need from the bid into the foundation accounting software. Okay. Also, we have the ability to send this into a iPad app that the Edge has called Edge on Site, where someone can then, a foreman in the field can then track the bid, see what they're on queue for, if they're falling behind on production rate, if they're running ahead. That's some of the things that the cloud allows you to do. That's the quick and dirty version of what the Edge has the possibility to do for concrete contractors. If there's any questions, please add them into the chat. One of the most popular questions we get is, we get our pricing directly from our suppliers. We don't do takeoff. That's fine. The Edge, as long as you have your assemblies or what we refer to as conditions built up in there, you can just come in here and go into your conditions. And let's go check this job out first before I show you that. All right, so let's work our way through the breadcrumbs back to our conditions. If you're not doing takeoff, you just come into your different conditions that you've created and manually enter the linear footages for each of these. It's still going to create all the material lists and the labor the way you want it to look. Yeah, so if you have a GC that's just sending you the quantity of linear footage of footings, the square footage of slab, you just come out here, hit F4, or I'm sorry, hit F2, and come out here and tell it the square footage. Okay. We have a question regarding labor. So yes, when it comes to labor, you have several different ways that you can look at it. I said we can look at it cost per unit or cost per linear foot or for cubic yard, cost per man days. The question was, can you do it based on crew size? And yep, we have several different columns that we can choose from, but you can specify crew size. And now we specify the crew size for our excavation, the different crew sizes for our forms or for finishing, and what their actual production rate is per crew day and the amount of crew days it's going to take for each function. It will total up over here on the side for you too, the total hours and the total man days it's going to take all together for the job. And I may have breezed over that at the recap level, but here got the total hours, total man days, total cubic yards of concrete, and then you get into your different other data that you can use for your proposal. Doesn't look like there's any other questions, so if you would like to see a more in-depth demo, or if you think of any questions after the fact, feel free to email me at dchapman@estimatingedge.com. You can also visit our website at estimatingedge.com and request a demo there. Look forward to hearing from some of you. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to me. Otherwise, have a great day, and thanks for watching. Take care.